It's Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. I'm Greg Nibbler, and this is Digital Trends Live. All right, hello everyone. This is Digital Trends Live, and like I said, I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and more. Let's get started right now with some trending news. There have been some interesting developments with Facebook, which has updated its terms of use globally in an apparent response to proposed legislation in Australia. So the new terms will give it a broad reach to take down and remove content that individual users publish if Facebook feels it could bring future legal trouble. Here's the backstory. The legislation being proposed in Australia is called the News Media Bargaining Code, and it would require Facebook and Google to share revenue and advertising dollars generated off of news with local media outlets. They would also be required to provide media publishers with data in regards to revenue generated from their content and to notify them well in advance of any impending changes to their algorithms. Facebook, in turn, has said that revenue generated from shared news content is only a tiny fraction of their overall earnings and that they work with publishers to send links back to their sites, which they claim helps the media organizations generate revenue of their own. Facebook has said the new terms are not being enacted to moderate user content per se, but to directly combat the Australian proposal and make it so they can prevent users and publishers in Australia from sharing any local or international media content on their pages. As of now, the legislation is still being proposed, but it appears there is a big desire to pass it since the Australian Treasurer, John Frydenberg, told reporters that he was prepared for this fight against Google and Facebook. It's clear that whatever happens there could have far-reaching implications for not only users globally, but also news media organizations. So we'll be following it closely at digitaltrends.com. Continuing on, Samsung showcased part 2 of their Galaxy Unpacked event, with this one entirely focusing on the Galaxy Z Fold 2. So the Fold 2 is the follow-up to last year's Galaxy Fold, with the Z part of it being the product line name they've given to all of their devices with foldable screens. One of the big improvements over the original Fold is the cover screen. On the original one, it was pretty small and actually left a lot of people wondering what use it was beyond the maybe seeing the time and maybe some text information. The new screen goes from 4.6 inches to 6.2 inches, which makes it more functional as an actual phone when it's not folded out. Another key feature is the seamless integration between single cover screen and the folded out 7.6 inch screen. They showcased someone watching a YouTube video on the cover screen, then opening it up to the full fold and seeing the same video continue directly on the bigger one and vice versa. The interior screen utilizes dynamic AMOLED and has a 120 hertz refresh rate and is markedly different from the previous version in that the giant notch system for the camera has been replaced by a hole punch camera. The hinges themselves have been improved. It's got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 processor and 12 gigs of RAM. The price is steep. It's $2,000 for the standard version and an even more expensive Tom Brown design version available as well. Pre-orders start at midnight on September 2nd, and you can read all of the details of our hands-on coverage of the new phone at digitaltrends.com. Anticipation is building toward the hope that Apple will announce the date of their annual September event where they show off their new flagship phone products. But until that happens, there are plenty of rumors to go around. The latest one comes from Bloomberg, which states that Apple will be showing off 4 new iPhones, and all of them will be 5G enabled if the rumor stands. The new phones are said to vary in size from 5.1 inches up to a 6.7 inch Pro version, and the panels on all of them will be OLED with improved color and clarity. The highest end may even have a LiDAR system that will be used for new augmented reality features that the company has been working on. Other products said to be debuting are a couple of redesigned or new iPads with narrower bezels and maybe a fingerprint scanner. There's also expected to be 2 new Apple Watches, with one being the successor to the Apple Watch Series 5 and the other being a lower cost competitor to things like the Fitbit. And you throw in the potential of a new HomePod device and maybe some over-the-ear headphones, and it should be a pretty fun event to watch whenever it is that they decide to announce it. Again, all these products are just rumors for now, but we've got a roundup of all of them at digitaltrends.com. We all expect our deliveries to be fast and most of the time technically free thanks to Amazon Prime, and Walmart wants in on the action with their launch of Walmart Plus. So the service will cost $12.95 a month or $98 a year and offer free delivery for any orders over $35 compared to Amazon Prime, which is now up to $119 a year, but offers free delivery on pretty much everything. Walmart said this service will encompass up to 160,000 products, including fresh groceries, and they would be delivered directly from local stores. And they think that'll give them a leg up on Amazon, which relies a lot on warehouses and a smaller number of actual grocery stores. But the delivery speed itself is still a bit of a variable, with Walmart only saying that it could be as fast as same day. The service will also offer Scan and Go for members, in which they can go into a store, scan a QR code on products, and then pay via their Walmart Pay service. Members will also get 5 cents off of gas at their fuel stations. Because of how many Walmart stores there are in the U.S. alone, though, it's predicted that up to 20 million people could sign up for the service within the first few months of the launch, which is set for September 15th. So another competitor to Amazon Prime. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. Here at Digital Trends, we keep you up to date on everything that is going on in technology, but also financial news. And that is why we have Winnie Sun joining us as usual to keep us up to date on this ever-changing and quickly changing world of finances. Winnie, so good to have you here. And I know there's a lot that's happened this last week that have people kind of questioning what is going on.
Absolutely. So much is going on, Greg, and it's always a great treat to be with you. And I think first off, there's so much going on with the Federal Reserve. You know, this was a historical meeting. If people weren't paying attention, I think you want to, and especially since you just talked about Walmart, you know, things at the store are going to get a little bit more expensive because Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has said he's allowing inflation to increase.
So with inflation increasing, why would they want to do that right now in the middle of a pandemic, and what does that mean for all of us?
Well, the idea is if he lets inflation increase, that will hopefully stimulate the economy. That means that more people like yourself and myself will go out and we'll be spending money at Amazon, at Walmart, wherever, because we're thinking things are going to get more expensive in the future. It also means, though, as a positive, is at least short-term interest rates are probably not going to come up anytime soon. So that means if you are, carrying credit card debt, or you have a student loan, or you need to, borrow money temporarily, at least your interest rate isn't going to go up anytime soon. However, that also means that if you have money in a savings account, your interest probably isn't going to go higher either. But one of the negatives I think everybody needs to pay attention to is if you haven't refinanced yet, you probably want to try and do that sooner rather than later if you're a candidate for that, because this will probably impact long-term interest rates. So those refinancing or purchasing a home, your interest rates will probably go higher on the long end.
Okay, good. Definitely good information to know. So get on that if you're looking to refinance for sure. Something else that's been I've noticed, in the news, it has to do with the stock market, the NASDAQ, the S&P, and it seems like they've had some gains in that. What does that mean, I guess, overall financially for our economy, and what should people be doing? Should they be investing?
So great question. Everybody's been asking about that because we know that the S&P already it's having record numbers, NASDAQ as well, doing so well, and now the Dow is erased all its losses for the entire year. So a lot of people are saying, well, I feel like I've been missing out. I haven't been investing. I've been keeping on the sidelines, or maybe I just didn't have money to invest yet. Is there something I can do right now? And I would say, I think the best thing to do if you haven't started investing yet is really to sort of take a sideline approach. Keep that cash ready to deploy in a nicely diversified portfolio, but take this time right now to do that planning. Figure out what stocks or bonds or investments that you want to build in that portfolio. Make sure it's diversified, but wait until the market comes down a little bit. It's a little overheated, especially in the names of technology, which we love our technology names, but certainly there's been a big boom in there. So we're hoping for a little bit of slowing down so that it'll allow new investors to jump back in.
Nice. Well, another thing that I know a lot of people are thinking about right now is we're into the last quarter of the year. I don't know where the time went, but that's where we're at now. And, with that, people are trying to figure out what to do if they do have some extra funding. Should they put it into an emergency fund like you've talked about before, or should they put it into kind of a retirement fund? What do you think is the best thing to do?
So, Greg, I feel like sometimes you don't have to choose. You can actually have a little bit of both. So, for example, if you really haven't stocked away a lot of money for your emergency fund, obviously now we know how important that is. You want to go ahead and do that. Like for an individual, have at least 6 months planned ahead of time in an emergency fund. But if you also are looking at your retirement, thinking, I didn't have that much saved there either, then before the end of the year, you might take a look at adding to those tax sheltered retirement accounts. So this could be your 401k, ideally a Roth 401k. And if you've done both, also consider if you're a gig worker and you have a side hustle and you have other 1099 income, this might be a chance for you also to fund a self-employed retirement account on the side, as well as a traditional IRA, which could convert to a Roth. There's a whole bunch of moving pieces, but basically the end of the year is critical for planning. So take a look at that. And also those of you who are parents or even maybe grandparents looking to do some gifting or donations, make sure you keep track of that before year end, because a lot of times we'll see the last month people scrambling to make those like gifting allocations to do some estate planning. So a lot to think about. What I would suggest is take a moment, speak to a financial advisor like myself or an accountant, and get your planning done.
Definitely great advice. And for people who want to speak to Winnie's son about their finances, what's the best place for them to go?
The best place to reach out to me is just to jump on our website, which is sungroupwp.com, or you can follow me on any of the social media handles and just send a direct message and I'll hear from you.
Winnie, thank you so much for joining us. I actually have a lot of friends who watch this segment for your financial advice as well, and I always appreciate it, and I think all of our viewers appreciate it as well. It's always nice talking to you. Winnie's son, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Greg, for having me. Love being here with you.
Winnie's son right there at Sun Group Financial. Love having her on this show too. Thank you everybody for joining us. This is Digital Trends Live. We're live every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So if it's your first time watching, hit that subscribe button because we get to talk to a lot of cool people. Winnie's son. Now we're going to Steve-O. Yes, Steve-O from Jackass. He is on next. I got to speak to him a little while about a new movie coming out and some other things. So that's coming up next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thank you, everybody, for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Our next guest only needs to go by his first name. You know him from Jackass, from his stand-up comedy tours, and starring in the new movie Guest House, which comes out on September 4th on demand and digital. It's Steve-O. Steve-O, hello. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. First off, I've got a lot of questions to ask you, but I got to ask, where are you right now?
I am in my RV.
So that's awesome. Well, going from that, you being here in your RV, let's talk about your movie. So it's you and it's Pauly Shore and a bunch of other people. How did you get approached to do this movie, Guest House?
My buddy Sam Macaroni directed it, and he told me that he wrote a part for me in it with me in mind, and I had to do it, and that's just kind of how we are, you know. We tell each other that we're going to do stuff, and we're just that good of friends. So yeah, it's great for me, man. Anytime I get to be in a movie, I always think it's kind of funny, but it was a real good experience.
Well, one of the things, even in the trailer, is just a classic Steve-O move. You know, this isn't spoiling anything, but you crash through a window. And I was wondering, have you ever had a stuntman actually do anything for you in a movie?
I don't think so. No. You know what's so interesting about that is that I crashed through this big glass door, and it was rigged up so that it kind of blew up as I went through it. And I landed on these little square-shaped pieces of glass and cut my hand really, like, deep, you know, right on the heel of my hand. And it was pouring blood all over the place. And they brought in the, you know, whatever, the makeup wardrobe person, whatever. It was my first experience with them clearing away real blood to like replace it with fake blood. It was just a weird thing. Like, yeah, normally it's the other way around.
Well, something I wanted to ask you, being in the spotlight for so long with Jackass, which really came up with MTV, and looking at the social media landscape now, do you think Jackass would have been different if it were started in the era of social media?
I mean, that's a tough question, man. I think I was very fortunate to have been born when I was. Particularly at the time when, I was trying to be noticed. What I did to get noticed was to plug VCRs together and record to duplicate videotapes, and then bring them to the post office and physically mail them to people who I thought might watch them. And that being the case, there was much less to compete with. Now everybody has a video camera in their pocket and they can just push a button and automatically disseminate footage. It's a very different world. And with all of the noise, all of the content to compete with, I think it would be very hard to expect Jackass to even happen, let alone have cultural significance in today's world.
With Jackass 2, I know Jackass 4 is coming out, delayed just like everything else, but coming out next year. What is it about that group of guys, this core group of Jackass, that brings you guys back together every time?
I mean, we're all bros. I think the question that I interpret out of that isn't what brings us together, but what makes it work. What's the chemistry, like what. Why is there a demand, for it? And I think that what we do, as reckless as it is, as irreverent as it is, I think that there's a real sort of a wholesome spirit in that we don't target anybody but ourselves. We never seek to make anybody feel bad, we really do everything that we do in a kind spirit. It sounds weird to say that, but I think the spirit of what we do is such that it just makes you feel good, and we're able to not take ourselves seriously, so we're comfortable with people being laughed at. I think that's kind of endearing, and we guarantee that there's going to be a crash, along the way, and everybody loves to slow down and look at a crash. So I think those are the ingredients that make it work and that bring us back together.
With those crashes, which is the hallmark of that, you've done so many crazy things. Is there anything that you're afraid of doing?
My fears are, I like the idea that I might not be noticed, that I might not be remembered, that I might not have anybody pay attention to me. That's been the big drives of my fear. I'm an attention whore through and through. So, I really have an overdeveloped concern for the opinions of others. That's kind of the basis for most of my fear.
Well, I can tell you've made a career. No one is forgetting about Steve-O. Like you've got that covered. But I totally understand. Something I wanted to ask you too, along these, going along the tech side of things. I wanted to ask you this, and this has to do with something that's in the news. Neuralink is a company from Elon Musk that is figuring out how to basically implant a chip in somebody's brain to create a brain machine interface. Is that something you would be willing to try?
I think that we should take it one step at a time, and let's get these self-driving cars worked out before we worry about brain surgery. We've been talking about self-driving cars for a pretty long time now, and I would personally really enjoy to not have to drive. I don't like driving. If my RV could drive itself while I was just chilling in the back, lounging, watching TV, that's what I want to worry about, you know. And I'm going to have a tough time taking anybody seriously talking about brain microchips until they can give me that self driving car.
And I want to remind everybody, Guest House out on September 4th on demand and digital, and for everybody to check out your podcast and everything else that you've got going on. We appreciate you taking some time here to be with us on Digital Trends Live. And thanks, man. Thanks, Steve-O.
Hey, I appreciate that. I also want to tell everybody about my new multimedia special, which is streaming on my website. It's called Gnarly, and I got the whole Jackass cast together for the first time in a long time. So if you're looking for a Jackass fix, it's waiting for you at steve-o.com.
That's Steve-O right here on Digital Trends Live, and thank you everybody for joining us. That's awesome. Again, check out the movie Guest House. We'll be back right after this with more. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thanks for joining us wherever you are. As I always say, hit that subscribe button, share the show, let other people know about it. We get to talk to some pretty amazing people on here, and that's why we have this segment. It's called Who's Got Game, where we partner with Full Screen to talk to amazing content creators, and that's what we're doing right now. The man behind Sharp Sports, it's Marcus Sharp joining us. Marcus, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We've got a lot of questions for you. I want to talk about everything that you got going on, but we always like to kind of start at the beginning. How did you get into this? And maybe you can tell everybody just a little bit more about what your channel does.
Okay, so I used to play high school football, and so I went to a kind of smaller school, and I felt like I had talent, but I wasn't really in the best system. Obviously, could have gone to a bigger high school, things like that. And so I knew, okay, if I felt like that, where I had talent, but I maybe didn't get the platform that I should have had or could have possibly been on, I thought maybe I could do that for other people. So my channel is really focused on shining a light on high school athletes. And if you got talent, no matter where you're at in the country, I want to give you a platform that constantly is growing. To maybe a coach stumbles across a video, or maybe a coach's kid stumbles across a video. It's like, hey dad, this kid's got game, or like, hey mom, this kid's got game. And then potentially get them some exposure.
Nice. And with that, going into something like this where you're getting, these videos, and I want to talk about that process too, but what is it like kind of having a football recruiting channel like this where you're showcasing high school sports? Because there's other ones out there, there's the big ones like 24/7 Sports and Rivals. What's it like going up against like something like that?
So I've always looked at it as I'm in a very unique position. So for example, 24/7 Sports or Rivals, you could consider them like an ESPN. Whereas I look at myself as like a Stephen A. Smith, like a person, like an actual face behind a brand. So whereas obviously every kid wants to be featured on ESPN, every kid wants to be featured on 24/7 Sports, but there's something a little bit more personal when it's like, oh no, that's Sharp. Like Sharp just covered me. Like, oh man, like, he just featured me on his YouTube channel. Like there's something a little bit more personal. And then on top of that, to be able to give them some, hype them up a little bit, because they have enough people telling them they can't do it. So to hype them up a little bit while also giving them some tips that I know of just from the years I've played football and the studying that I do with football. It's just a little unique position that's where I feel like my niche is in this whole recruiting game.
Well, For the videos themselves and for these different high school athletes, how do you get the content? Do they send it into you or do you seek it out?
So it's a little bit, it's a mix of both. It kind of goes 50-50. So either I'll have the player themselves reach out to me, or I'll go, Huddle is a great website that literally just has everybody's highlight tape. And so most of these kids make their own highlight tapes. And then if you just type in their name and the school that they go to, you can just find it right there online. And so yeah, it's pretty easy to find the highlight tapes, or they'll just send it to me directly.
Well, you mentioned, playing football yourself. How's things changed, I guess, from your recruiting process, what it was like when you started, to where it is now with social media and the different things that are available to these players?
It's in a much better place because I've always looked at it as like, obviously you got college recruiters who are paid very well to try and find talent from all across the country, but obviously you can't get to every little town in these back road areas, but there's talented kids all across the country. So I mean, I'll be on Twitter and I'll see like low level Division 1 coaches just tweeting out, hey, any player at any position, if you guys have a highlight tape, send it in to me because we're trying to recruit. So with just the whole social media thing, coaches can reach a wider audience and they don't have to drive or fly everywhere to be able to find talent in these smaller areas. And so I feel like recruiting is it's going in a much better direction, especially with social media being able to help out with that.
Well, looking at things now, just with where everything is, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, nobody planned for that, but with a lot of programs as far as college football, they're pushing things off to maybe the spring or who knows. What kind of advice would you have for seniors who maybe didn't even get to graduate necessarily, but are wanting to plan ahead? What advice would you have for them as far as recruiting?
If you're a high school senior and you don't have any offers, find your nearest junior college. Junior college is something that I wish was taught to me. For the most part, you're probably going to get, if you did well in school, you're going to get most of your tuition covered by student loan, or not student loans, type of like just any type of loan program or something like that. You're going to get covered through that, while it's also giving you a chance to see what college football is like, get to be in that experience. Okay, maybe you get to be away from mom and dad, you get to see how you do on your own, but you're not taking on those massive 4-year student loans. So, hey, if you don't have any offers, go to a junior college because it's going to be the best way for you to spend a year or two at that program, and then potentially you could transfer with a scholarship to potentially one of your dream schools.
Nice. Something else that we like to ask everybody, that we are a tech show. We always like to ask, like, what's one piece of tech that you wouldn't be able to live without right now?
OBS. OBS is such an amazing
Nice.
program. It's what I'm pretty sure you guys know what it is. Anybody who's on Twitch definitely knows what it is. Basically, it's a screen recording software, but it's so much deeper than that. I mean, you can add overlays. If I had a green screen behind me, I can key out the green screen. It's a very powerful tool, but it's also very simple, and it just makes my life very, very easy.
You're the first person to have that answer. That's a good solid answer that you've got. Most people just say their phone. OBS. All right, you're looking at it for something else too, just for your channel in particular. Where do you see this going? How do you want to grow this, and where do you want to end up with it?
So I really want to develop this. And okay, so right now it's like, okay, I watch kids highlights and it kind of grows from there. I really want it to be more of a sports media brand, like a 24/7 sports, but developing that into its own community. So like hosting my own 7-on-7 camps, hosting my own showcase camps. My goal is I want every kid, if you're a D1 athlete, I want you to go to a D1 school. If you're a D2 athlete, I want you to go to a D2 school. If you're a D3 athlete, same thing. Like, I don't want anybody to slip through the cracks. If one kid gets a scholarship because a coach watched my video, hey, my job is done. So I really want to grow this into as big of a brand so that, hey, kids resonate with it, coaches resonate with it, and it's just a good melting pot to help just get kids to continue their dream of playing high school or to play football just in general.
Nice. Well, Marcus, thank you so much for joining us here to talk about, just everything that you had going on there, do the future, and what you're doing. Definitely entertaining. Congratulations on what you've grown so far. Excited to see where you go with it, too. And everybody follow along the link right down there, so Sharp Life. And Marcus, thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you for having me.
Marcus Sharp right here on Digital Trends Live. And like I said, every day we get to talk to really amazing people, whether it's creators or entertainers, whatever it is, tech icons. We've got it all here on this show. And that's why I want you to hit subscribe, to share the show, let other people know about it. Join us here every single weekday, 9 Pacific, noon Eastern, where we always have lots going on for you. And with that, I'll say goodbye today. I'm Craig Nibbler. I'll see you here tomorrow with another edition of Digital Trends Live.